Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson football channel. Unfortunately, there's no more positive news for us to go through. In this video, we are going to be ranking from 10 to 1, which just goes to show that Pochettino isn't just the problem here at Chelsea. Now, over the 10 to 1, as you can see here, there's going to be me. On the right, there's going to be a list of 10 things. On the left, and there's a big cloud of a variable that Chelsea can't really control any longer, called FFP. Now, we could have controlled the way that FFP affected us, but FFP being another issue that we're currently worried about on top of results, performances, the owners, the manager, the players, the list is massive. But I think what I've done here is I've narrowed it down, and it sounds like I'm having a load of fun doing this, I'm not really, but I've narrowed it down to 10 things that can be identified as specific issues, and we can see which ones kind of roll in with the others, so that we can kind of really pinpoint here what we can control, what can happen and change right now, and what is going to require a completely different way of viewing the club, viewing the changes necessary. And first of all, we begin with the hierarchy itself, the role delegation within that hierarchy. We can say whatever we want. We can't change history. We can't change the fact that what's happened between Russia and Ukraine has happened. Roman Abramovich had Chelsea Football Club taken away from him. When you remember back to that whole process of Roman handing the club over, who was it going to be that took over at Chelsea? I remember sitting there being like, well, you know, we've never had to deal with this issue in my lifetime, and when Roman Abramovich bought the club, it was the best thing since sliced bloody bread. And at that point in time, when Roman was going to be losing the club, we all looked at the situation, and I think the majority of people looked at it and thought, well, this is going to be about picking the best of a bad bunch. And when I saw Todd Boehly, when I heard Clear Lake Capital, and I saw some of the other names that were touted, I think, well, actually, maybe these guys were the right guys. This is before they jumped in and started making any kind of decisions. From the moment they took over the club, you can see this. There's a deterioration here, which has basically meant that everybody that they've brought in, all of the decisions that have been made since the moment they took over, has sent the club even further down the slope of negativity, and the outcome is exactly where we are right now. I say role delegation within the hierarchy because I definitely think your likes of Paul Winstanley, Lawrence Stewart, I don't think these guys should be in the roles that they're in. Doesn't mean to say that they don't have a role at the club. Doesn't mean to say that Todd Boehly may end up being a good chairman one day. But when he's making himself flipping director of football or whatever it was, it's pure lunacy. You've also got David Barnard, who officially is the director of football operations at Chelsea Football Club. This was actually a good part of what the new ownership actually did, because David Barnard had been employed as the club's secretary since 2007. So keeping someone, the director of football, as I think this was said by Dan Ashworth on a podcast. The director of football, I wrote this down here, I want to read this one out to you. In the middle of the wheel, dealing with all spokes of the wheel, keeping the wheel spinning. So the director of football at Chelsea needs to be someone who understands the club, understands which spokes within that wheel need to be oiled, who needs to be communicating with who, so that everything is connected. So when it comes to the hiring of certain roles, it's not been atrocious across the board. There needs to be people within this club who still know what being at Chelsea is all about. David Barnard is one of those. He's also one of the directors. There's also so many flipping directors, which means there are so many different stakeholders where we need to jump through hoops. If the club are going to be doing something, there are so many people who need to have their 2 cents before an executive decision is made. So we move now into number 9, and I've put Pochettino as number 9 here. Chelsea's manager, who is getting all the headlines right now, and anyone who's making videos saying that Pochettino should be sacked, I've made these videos, but I wanted to make this one just to really illustrate here, through the use of graphics, through me trying to tie all of this stuff together to see just how big the issues are before we can start saying, well, this is the solution. We've got to remember here that this is just a snowballing effect of big problems that have just been created from making the wrong decisions in the first place. When we said out loud in public that we weren't going to be that club anymore that keeps on hiring managers, firing managers. We wanted to be different. We knew that there was going to be a change. We knew that it was a project that was going to happen amidst this takeover. Pochettino, to be quite honest, when you look through some of the other reasons that we're going into detail for in the later part of this video, you can see that Pochettino is probably one of the smallest parts of the overall Chelsea problem here. Number 8, I have put emotional detachment. Emotional detachment relates to Pochettino. He used to be a Spurs manager. Even before the match that we played at White Hart Lane earlier this season, he was flirting again with Tottenham Hotspur. Chelsea managers do not do that, particularly in a press conference in the build-up to it. There is also, because of all of the changes, a severe lack of people within this club who actually understand the frustrations that we as fans have right now. It's not only just the emotional detachment, but it is the lack of understanding about what it is to run a Premier League club, let alone an elite level European football club, one of the biggest, best clubs in England. This has been something that, as we have seen decision after decision go wrong, the emotional detachment has become so clear. When you spend so much money on all of these different players who are coming in, these players don't really have the feeling that we as fans want them to have about why fighting for the badge means something. Why is playing for Chelsea a privilege? It's easy for me to sit here, you to comment it because we actually care about the club. But when these players have just come in, signed 5, 6, 7, 8-year deals, and things aren't going well, it's easy to be like, oh, well, I'm young. I don't need to be here forever. If I just make it out like I don't really want to be here, don't put the effort in, hopefully the club will sell me and I can kickstart my career somewhere else. Why be attached to Chelsea? And it seems across the board as though it's not just Pochettino, who has never really been that endearing as of yet. A lot of the players as well. And I think as much as the new owners have been a bit vocal, maybe even more so at times than Abramovich, who was very much just behind the scenes. Oh, we need a cash injection. Here you go, son. We need some more players. There you go, mate. And obviously he wasn't allowed in the UK for some time as well, so he couldn't really be at the forefront of everything. But the issues here at Chelsea lie so much deeper. We move into the medical staff. I think when it comes to a lot of the players that we have had at the club, particularly those like Reece James, Ben Chilwell, key components of the Chelsea team, big players in this squad. Chelsea, when we changed everything, as we've gone through many times in the previous video and here today we've illustrated it, we have changed so many things, including the medical staff. So a lot of the players that are injury prone were used to a certain protocol from certain medical staff members at the club. We've changed all of those as well. And I think there is definitely so much to be said for the way that we have managed so many players who clearly, even prior to signing for Chelsea, were players that had an abundance of injuries on their CV. And yet still, we don't know how to manage it. There were so many players not getting injured when they're actually playing 90 minutes in the Premier League at the weekend. They're getting injured on the turf at Cobham. So is it even to a point here where when we're ranking all of these issues, we've got to start talking about the groundsman? Do we have to start talking about the turf at Cobham? Overall, far too many injuries has inhibited Pochettino being able to create anything. It's inhibited the players being able to connect to one another on the field, and it's 100% made things worse, having yet more stuff that the players need to get used to. Point number 6 here is that the players are simply not good enough. If I put number 5 in, there's no experience, so then overall, we can blame the recruitment. That is 4, 5, 6 on this list. The recruitment has not included enough experienced players, and then as a result of that, all of the youngsters are not good enough right now to be where Chelsea expect them to be. And when we go up towards the top of this list here, this all comes down from the very top of the hierarchy. When it comes to the delegation of certain roles at this club, Lawrence Stewart, Paul Winstanley have not been able to identify the right manager to be able to work with the right players. No one's performing. The owners aren't performing. As it goes down that hierarchy, this is what a traditional football club looks like when it comes to the hierarchy. You can see it here on the screen. But so many mistakes have been made and we are simply not learning from them. We have rushed the changes at this football club, expected everything to just fall into place for the very simple reason that these rich people that have come in and taken over, they believe that this was about business. They believe that this is about maybe lining their profits. And I find it difficult to fully say that and fully believe it because, yes, they have spent a lot of money. Is it just the fact that they're oblivious to the way in which you need to scout, the way in which you need to absolutely create a culture at a football club so that we can actually be winners? The winning culture that Chelsea Football Club had for so many years, basically my whole lifetime. I was born in '94, even to the late 90s before the turn of the millennium. Chelsea were winning FA Cups, competing in cup finals. We have been a special club for so many years, and now the winning culture has completely and utterly evaporated. It's disappeared. And this has happened in 2 years. We won the Champions League less than 3 years ago. And this is why I even thought, you know what? I can sit here all day long and say to you guys, Mauricio Pochettino needs to be fired, because that is the surface level change that needs to happen. This video is not about letting Pochettino off the hook and saying the players are bad, blame the recruitment, and blame Todd Boehly, the ownership, as number one. I could have put all of the different names of all of the different directors here as the top point. Todd Boehly was brought in, he's the chairman, and he is the face of this whole Clear Lake investment that have taken over Chelsea Football Club. And as a result of being the face, there are levels that you need to hit when it comes to the way you speak to the media. There's levels of knowledge that you must have before you become memed in the footballing world by saying, I think we should go with a 4-4-3 formation. The bloke is an absolute farce. And it's got to the point now where you look down this list and bloody hell, if I didn't fancy my own mug so much, I'd have said, you know what? Don't put me on the second half on the other side of the video. Let's have another list of 10. Let's add another 20 points to this list on the right-hand side. But no, I've decided to put my mug there to hopefully keep you guys entertained for as long as humanly possible. I don't think we can expect anything dramatic to improve that much for a very long time. I think that is the reality of the situation here. From the very top, they need to remove the ego. This is all at this point about egos. And if Chelsea's owners, the directors, and everybody involved at the club, if they can hold their hands up here at this point right now, because this FFP cloud, this is what we're going to wrap up this video by talking about. If everyone can just surrender their egos for a little bit and be like, look, we've taken over the club. Within 2 years, we have put us in a far worse position, spent some awful money, hired some poor managers. What do we do? Remove that ego and be like, let's start from scratch now. It's almost too late already because we're almost breaking FFP. Chelsea break FFP, start getting point deductions, potential relegations, worst case scenario, and the club is officially dead. Like dead. Not even just we're disappointed at the way we look right now, the way it seems. Dead. Completely dead. Maybe not completely dead, but like it's pretty dark. Really flipping dark. So I hope that the ownership can hold up their hands here. Remove some of the ego that 100% is involved in this because they're businessmen. This is business. And Chelsea shouldn't be ran the way that we have because it's bad business and the whole culture of the club has shifted to a point where I'm making videos like I did yesterday. I don't recognise Chelsea Football Club anymore. Let me know Out of all of these things on this list, it's not like a definitive yet, number 1 to number 10. These are just 10 things. They could really be in any order, but I think Pochettino is not the biggest problem at the club. And I wanted to address that instead of just making sack videos. Later on, we're going to do the Aston Villa preview. Thank you guys for watching. Your thoughts in the comments. Come on, you Blues.